Hello and welcome to this special edition of 60 Minutes Nigeria right here on Independent Television. I am Ameze Bazwaye. Now, as we approach International Women's Day 2025, it is both timely and it's necessary that we turn our focus to a subject that remains at the heart of Nigeria's democratic evolution: women in politics. This year's International Women's Day theme, Accelerate Action, calls for urgent and transformative steps towards gender equality, urging societies worldwide to move beyond rhetorics and into concrete reforms. Today, we are going to critically examine the progress, the challenges, and we'll look at the future of women's participation in Nigeria's political landscape. Despite being a country with a population of over 100 million women, Nigeria continues to lag in female political representation. In the 10th National Assembly, for example, only 3.7% of Senate seats and 4.7% of House of Representatives seats are held by women, which is far below the global average of 26.5%. Now, this stark underrepresentation highlights the barriers that continue to stifle women's political ambitions, from structural to cultural constraints to financial and, of course, institutional limitations. We have a lot of controversies that recently bring to mind the need for gender-sensitive politics. Now, the recent verbal exchange between Senate President Godswill Akpabio and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan have reignited discussions on the challenges that female politicians face in Nigeria's often male-dominated political space. Now, what began as a debate on parliamentary affairs later skyrocketed into highly publicized moments that some have criticized as reflective of the patronizing and dismissive attitudes female lawmakers frequently encounter. Though the Senate President has since apologized, the incident raises a pressing question. Is the Nigerian political arena truly conducive for women, or is it still entrenched in systematic gender bias? Now, today on the show, we are going to be looking at women's political participation as not just a matter of representation, but a prerequisite for inclusive governance and sustainable development. Studies show that countries with higher female participation in politics tend to have stronger social policies, they have lower corruption levels, and they have better governance overall. I'm not saying this because I'm a woman, but like I said, studies actually show that. In Nigeria, where gender inequality remains a pressing issue, amplifying women's voices in governance is not just an option. As far as I'm concerned, it is a necessity. So as we celebrate International Women's Day 2025, we must ask ourselves, how can we move from discussions to action? How can we ensure that the next generation of women in Nigeria do not face the same hurdles that their predecessors did? I'm not going to be doing this alone today on the show. I have some amazing personalities who will be joining me. Of course, they're gender equality advocates that will be joining me on the show today, 60 Minutes Nigeria. I am Ameze Bazwaye. Stay with us. All right, it's still 60 Minutes Nigeria right here on Independent Television with yours truly, Ameze Bazwaye. Today, like I said before we went on the break, we are going to be looking at women in politics. What is the way forward? All right, we tend to see these days that there's a gender disparity, there's a bias, if some people may say that, between the male folk and the female folk, especially when it comes to politics. We tend to see a lot of women shy away. We tend to see that women are not really as supported as they should be, like their male folk or their male counterparts, as the case may be. So to join me and talk about this today, and let's chart a way forward. Like I said, we're looking towards celebrating International Women's Day on Saturday, the 8th of March. So to join me to talk about this today is Oluchi Wonsu. She is a communications expert, gender advocate, and the executive director, Diela Orchid Media. Good afternoon and welcome to 60 Minutes Nigeria.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show. So tell me, Oluchi, what do you think are those specific actions that can be taken to accelerate action towards achieving gender parity, especially in Nigerian politics? We tend to see a disparity between the male and the female. We don't see as much women in politics. You may see women in positions of leadership in other sectors in the country, in society, but when it comes to politics, we don't really see a lot of women there. What is the reason?
The reasons are not far from what it has been. Uh, we have the challenge, we have the patriarchal challenge, which turns out to be one of the most stubborn problems that has ever confronted the woman in the political space. Uh, the patriarchal challenges are things that our generation inherited, and those who had gone before us also experienced uh, those challenges. One of it is very biased and stringent assessment and judgment of the woman in the political space. We could see those things in conversations. The way the woman in politics is being referred to, both in utterances, the way they're treated. And I think it's closely tied with some of our cultural, beliefs and norms, which, by the way, are man-made, meaning they are made by humans. And with the change and the advocacy globally, I expected that Nigeria was going to experience some form of improvement and progress. But it turns out that most of these challenges have persisted because I believe that there's a lot of lip service around the conversations that have come up and waiting implementation. Another thing that has kept women backwards, especially in Nigeria, is the issue of lack of funding. Um, Many women don't have the funds to be able to run for office and get themselves into elective positions. And that's because they are not empowered to. So if the woman in politics, if women in politics want to really break free, I think one of the areas they are meant to be looking at is true empowerment. When I say true empowerment, is because the idea of empowerment has been polluted or watered down. So they've made a lot of women think that when they come around them with the tag of empowerment, it has to be probably things that they give them. But that does not translate to empowerment, especially in these times. The world is changing. People are things are digitalized. We need to find a way to ensure that first and foremost we get the right education and training to be able to contest for these positions. We get the right education and training to help us generate the kind of money that we would need to run for elective positions. There has to be some form of system or a scheme that helps women put money together to support other women who are qualified and who have what it takes to run for office.
All
So
right,
for me, there are
Oluchi.
quite a number of challenges, but this remains like the two key things that has held women
Okay.
back.
All right. While you were talking, a news just actually broke. I'm sure you're very familiar
Yes,
about the
yes,
incident or the issues
yes.
surrounding the Senate
I was
currently,
following up.
as regards
Yeah,
Senate President Akpabio and of course Senator Natasha. Right now, we're
yes,
getting some information that Senator Natasha has been, or rather, they are proposing that she be suspended for 6 months because of the
yes. I
accusations
followed
that
up.
she actually made. So, what is your take on
Yeah,
that?
I followed up before I joined
Okay.
you here now. Yes, I followed up to the point where I think the third person was speaking before I
Mm.
joined. Um, my thoughts about that is because the last thing I heard from them was they were demanding an apology, right?
Yes.
Uh, or she'll be suspended. But I would want to ask, what is the apology for? Apology over what
Mm.
precisely? Because you see, if you're telling me that you are talking about her her not following rules concerning the rules of the Senate, her breaking their rules, or what we saw that day, which, by the way, I don't think is a reaction. I think what we saw that day on camera was an outburst. I
Okay.
call it an
Okay.
outburst because before before you can get that kind of outburst, it has been suppressed. It's something that she had tried to hold, manage, and she just lost it.
Yeah.
So before we need to relate with to this first of all as logical human beings. We saw an outburst from Natasha, and it was after that incident that we got to know why she got so frustrated to that point to have acted in that manner. So, like I said, the apology they are demanding, what is it for? Is it for not sitting where they asked her to sit,
Mm.
or for the outburst in the Senate? I needed, I wanted to really have a grip of what it is they want her to apologize for. Because after that, she came out to say that she has been sexually harassed.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, sexual harassment is not, you can't play politics with it. It is a human rights issue. Women's rights are human rights. And I don't even want to play any gender war with it.
Mm.
For a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to come out and say she has been sexually harassed, she's not an illiterate. She knows what
Exactly.
her harassment means. She knows what harassment means. And it took her a lot to have come out to say those things. And I don't think it's something that should be watered down. If they say they want to suspend her because she broke their rules in the house, please, I want Nigerians to pay attention. We cannot sweep those allegations under the carpet. We need those things to be investigated before I come out and make an allegation. Of course, I must have evidences and bits and pieces that can be put together to substantiate what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to say that these are some of the things, when you asked me, I said patriarchal challenges, and this
Yeah.
is one of it. And for the allegation to be made against the president of the Senate, I don't think there is no gang up on earth that should be able to cover that. It's an allegation, yes, it should be investigated. And while we're talking about investigation, I would suggest strongly, as a matter of fact, Nigerians are demanding that the Senate president steps aside. We want an independent body to investigate it. Because from everything we have seen so far, up until this moment, before I joined this live, there is what we see as a gang up.
Okay.
So please, we would want those allegations to be investigated by an independent body. And while they're at it, we would need the Senate president to step aside because the allegations were on him.
All right. Like some people would
And we
say,
need
you
the
can't
feedback
be
from
a judge in
Nigerians.
your own matter, right? Let's move away from that particular
Exactly.
incident. Okay. Let's talk about the cultural
Okay.
perceptions and, of course, some societal norms that may impact women's participation and representation in political spheres. In Nigeria, or in this part of the country where we are from, you tend to see some persons say a woman's place is in the kitchen. What is she doing in the political space? What is your take and what is your advice on that particular angle?
That kind of statement is it sounds like a taboo to me.
Mm.
Because how would you want to relegate another human being to the kitchen? God created us and deposited different inherent talents in us. And as a person, I have the rights. I always like to talk from the angle of human rights. As a human being, I have the right to aspire for anything if I so desire, so long as I believe I can be that thing. And some of these things that I said were tied to custom, tradition, cultures, and all of that have come to, it has not even benefited even the traditional people that put it. It has not benefited them. Let me give you an example. During COVID, I like to share this. During COVID, when teams were put together in the FCT to manage the situation, the pandemic, the first meeting they had were reliably informed that the then Minister of Women Affairs was conspicuously absent at that meeting. And the result of that, of her being absent, was what we saw, like it was a ripple effect of a pandemic in the main pandemic that we're dealing with. And I'll explain what I mean by that. We began to see cases of rape, different cases. Some were even raped and killed. Some were locked up with their abusers. Because at that meeting, there was nobody to view or listen or relate with the things that they were saying with a gendered lens. There's something we call the gendered lens. So if they are talking about this bottled water today, a woman would be able to look at that bottled water and even see beyond just the content in the bottle. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So the effect or the importance of having women in key leadership positions can never be downplayed. We saw how the COVID was also managed in various countries. Countries that had women as the head did wonderfully well. They managed it very well. And if you look at, I can even give you an example, the banking sector, for example.
Yes.
We have women, and I'm glad, I always like to say this, I'm glad that the banking sector is waking up to the realities on ground concerning the Nigerian woman. And they're giving room for women to emerge, at leadership positions. And those women are doing exceedingly well. So why would anybody in 2025 think to relegate a human being, a woman, to the kitchen, when a woman can go out there? A woman is a good negotiator. A woman can go there and bring results. If women are meant to be relegated to the kitchen, even in politics, why is it that when it comes to action, when they need action, they begin to look for women? They begin to mobilize women. We are the ones who have children. We are the ones that will go home and not just think to go and vote ourselves. We're mobilizing our children. Our children are mobilizing these ones. We're packing the whole family to go to vote. You cannot downplay the importance of a woman. You cannot relegate a woman to the kitchen. We're way, 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 way more important than that. So that kind of statement just puts me off. I don't even feel I should be discussing it because the world has gone far beyond that.
All right, so Oluchi, you actually made mention of during the COVID-19 period where a lot of people had to handle situations in different manners, especially leaders of countries. And you made mention of the fact that those who had female leaders actually excelled more. What do you think is the reason why those with female leaders excelled more, in your own opinion?
One, compassion, like I said. A woman is naturally compassionate. And I did mention something about having, using the gendered lens. It helps you to, beyond what we see on the surface, the gendered lens helps you to see, gives you deeper insight to things. And I think that what men would naturally probably just push aside, women will pay more attention to it. So someone who has compassion, someone who is hospitable, someone who is very caring would take extra steps towards ensuring that the people under her care or in her care are kept safe and alive.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a short break right about now. It seems our connection is a bit floppy. But when we come back, we'll definitely get talking more with my guest, Oluchi Wonsu, on women in politics. What is the way forward? Stick around. Thank you so much for staying with us on the program 60 Minutes Nigeria, right here on Independent Television. Today we are taking a focus on women in politics. What is the way forward? What is the future of women in politics? I know someone actually said in the background, we're talking women matters this week. Actually on Saturday, the 8th of March, we're going to be celebrating International Women's Day. So what other week, what other time do we have to talk about women? That's why I'm doing this today on the show, 60 Minutes Nigeria. My guest, Oluchi Wosu, is still on standby. But before I talk to her, because the next question I'm going to be asking her, I have to give out these things that I'm about to read out to give her a background, give her a foresight on what she's going to be talking about next. There are a lot of women in existence, some who have passed on, who actually delved into politics and excelled. I'm going to be talking about a few of them. I have over 20 of them right here, but I'm going to be giving you about 5 before I go on to ask my next question. I have Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She is the Director General of the World Trade Organization and a former finance minister. She was the first woman and first African to lead the WTO, and she played a key role in Nigeria's debt relief and economic returns. We also have Amina J. Mohammed. She is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations and also a former Minister of Environment. What is special about her? She is a global advocate for sustainable development, and she played a key role in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, we have Dora Akunyili of blessed memory. She is a former Director General of NAFDAC and a Minister of Information. She led a major fight against counterfeit drugs in Nigeria, saving lives and, of course, earning global recognition. We have Obiageli Ezekwesili. She is a former Minister of Education, co-founder of Transparency International, and an advocate for anti-corruption and women's rights. And she also led the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. The list goes on and on. We have Remi Tinubu, of course, the Nigerian senator and our current First Lady. She's active in legislative work. She focuses on women's rights, education, and of course, social issues. I can keep going on and on. A lot of women have done excellently well when given positions of power. Now, I want to ask Oluchi Wonsu, what is your take on the place of mentorship, okay, and the support networks that among female politicians to contribute to greater gender equality in politics? Do you think that there is need for those who are already in existence, who are fighting it out there as politicians, as females, do you think there is any need for them to create a support group or a support network and mentor upcoming persons who are interested in going into politics? Do you think it would do any good?
Stating just how I made reference to empowerment, right?
Yeah.
Mentorship in itself, um, we need to spell some things out. I think the concept of mentorship has also been polluted, especially in the political space. What we see these days as mentorship is usually just having people that they can use without truly making impact on the younger ones, without helping to see that there's growth. Now, let me break down what I mean. Being with a person, serving a person, being loyal to a person in a particular space in politics, naturally, everything that concerns your growth and improvement as a person should be a priority. how many of the older women truly help younger women grow? How many? When they even see opportunities that will benefit these younger women, I can tell you categorically that offhand, we know women who will either block it or do not even recognize that those opportunities are meant to help these younger ones under them. And you know why? Because they are if you check it, they are disconnected from those younger women. They just have them following them around. And they need to realize that the world is changing. The demands to stay afloat in our world today is different from what it was years back. If you cannot help young women match up with their age mates or their contemporaries in other countries, then you are really not doing anything. In the political circle, we've had young people follow older women for years, and it's like they steal their youth, because while they are still in their prime, they don't even think that they should support or push this young girl to contest an elective position. Now, let me go back to where you started from. You mentioned some names, right?
Yes.
It might interest you to know that a good number of the people you mentioned, from Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala to the Ngozi, was under a particular administration.
Mm.
And I find it necessary right now to state very clearly that it it seems like there's something with the current administration that doesn't really give women the room to function and function well. I'm saying this without any sense of bias or hate or anything. But there's something they need to go back to the drawing table
Okay.
and assess. Because under Jonathan, we saw a lot of women being empowered. They were they grew, to occupy certain positions. Take, for example, the same Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala you mentioned served, in two offices before she moved to where she is right now.
Yeah.
And that's because they were not being they were not being shut out. They were given room, in as much as it wasn't an elective position, it was, appointed position, but it happened under an administration. So I would want for the current administration to pay attention to these details. Now, I would also want to point out, you mentioned Senator Remi Tinubu, the wife
Yes.
of the current president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. One thing you would notice, even if you don't know much about Remi, you will know that while she was in the Senate, she was not quiet.
Very true.
She could speak, she was very vocal. And that was why it doesn't matter if you didn't like her or her ways, but she was vocal. You could notice her, she could stand for whatever it is she believed in. She could push for the things that she felt were meant to benefit the people that she represents.
So
So
being in the position of First Lady now, don't you think someone of that capacity is supposed to actually push, will I say, her husband into ensuring that more women are
exactly,
given the voice?
exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Exactly what I'm trying to say. That under this administration, there is something they need to go back to the table
Mm.
and tell themselves the truth. We need to see her doing it much more than she's doing,
Okay.
especially for younger women. And I pray in my heart of hearts, I really wish she was listening to this or watching. I want their eyes to be open to the things happening in the political space, especially with younger women. We have like a gathering of older women who do not want to see younger women grow. I am saying this and I'm saying it boldly. They don't want to see younger women grow. They don't want your growth. There are women who are dedicated. They are not interested in growing themselves, but they are dedicated to seeing that other women, younger women don't come up. Personally, as a person, I've suffered, I've suffered what I won't say um, exactly what Natasha suffered because she has
Okay.
contested election. I haven't. I haven't even been given that kind of room.
The
You
platform,
understand
yeah.
to be at the table and stuff. But I have been maligned. I have had older women gather young women to protest against me for what I knew nothing about,
Oh, wow.
just to dent me. That was enough to break me as a person. That was enough to make me shut down as a person. But I kept pushing. So I am saying I need those with a working conscience to begin to turn on the lights in the dark areas of our political space. A lot is going on. A lot is going on. And it has established this culture of silence. Do you know what it means for something to happen within a space? And you have to resort to calling on, authorities to help out. It means that the mechanism put to help solve that problem within that space either isn't functional or some people have grown too big to be cautioned or made to answer certain questions. I don't know if you understand me. So
Absolutely.
rights are being violated right now. People are losing it. People are shutting down. We are talking about the Senate. You're saying we have only 4 women. With what is happening, if care is not taken, even the men, those who are married, their men may not even want them to go anywhere close to politics again. Some, seeing what has been happening, are already discouraged. I'm telling you this. I know young women that have said they are done. They don't want to have anything to do with it. So, what were we created only to come and support a man run for office and drum support for him and gather, mobilize people and have him get into office?
Yeah.
Are we allergic to power? And I think that we should begin to do these things based on competence and capacity
Yes.
instead of just mere affiliation or in the name of loyalty.
Okay,
There are
Oluchi, you actually
people
made
who
mention
have been,
of the fact that you were a victim of this. Some older women in politics actually gathered others to be against you. I think it's a norm that we tend to see. It's been there, that when a woman comes out and declares her intention to run for a particular office, you don't see a lot of women supporting them. Women hardly support women, especially in politics. Why do you think this is so? And what should we do to ensure that this
um,
trend goes away?
on this, I would like to be very specific.
Okay?
Where that narrative came from and was established, it was established over the older women in the space. I can tell you that as a young woman, all the people that had been that they set up to have probably personal issues. I'm talking about my personal experience now.
Okay?
All the women that they had set to have personal issues with me turned out that they'd never really had any issues with me. It was one older woman somewhere sending somebody to say this or do that. We love ourselves. This morning, I sent a message to another young lady, and I said, I am tired of this thing that older women have established to make it look as if women hate themselves. Do you know we have women that would do anything to put themselves up there? I've had
Yeah.
younger women like me give me opportunities. And I'm saying this, and I keep telling them, let us make the difference. Let us change the narrative. We are not like them. Yes, we're in politics. Whatever it is they established as an ideology for them cannot work for us in this age. We have no reasons to fight ourselves. I belong to a body of young women from different political parties. And
Okay.
one thing we agree on is that our our ideology is what? Womanhood. What we stand for is womanhood. Womanhood first, before anything, before our parties. So long as a woman is down, we move in. We
Okay.
provide support. As a communications person, I am personally dedicated to anything that has to do with a woman providing support using the media, especially digital and then social media. I don't need to call you. I don't need you to give me a dime. I believe that it's a seed. Probably someday it will yield fruit. But while I am still here, if I'm not able to sit in the rooms where they take these decisions, I can make the change with using the social media. And with the case of Natasha, that is what I've done. And that
Okay.
is where the hashtag for We Stand with Natasha came from. Because that is a woman crying out. Why would any sane woman want to downplay something as serious as sexual harassment?
Yes.
Why? Why would any sane woman think that sexual harassment only works with a particular age? In this same world where people rape even grandmothers, it's unacceptable. We need to contribute. We need to keep speaking about this. And that is why I told you I want to limit that thing of women not liking themselves to the older women. We don't want that toxic trait. We don't want it. We're ridding ourselves of it. And by the special grace of God, movements are rising up of younger women who would hold their hands, who would hold one another, who would push for one another, irrespective of party. So long as it's a woman with competence, character, and capacity, she must get in there.
Okay.
That is what I believe in.
It,
And
it
that
would
is what I
actually be
stand for.
wonderful to see that actually happen. If it could come to the limelight, it would be a thing of joy. But hey, there are other challenges that women in politics face and women who want to go into politics face. The issue of securing party nomination and, of course, funding for political campaigns is actually there. It's a big one. How do you think that these barriers can be addressed?
I mentioned two things. I told you patriarchal challenge and the issue of lack of fund for women who want to contest.
Yes.
And I think that there should be a scheme. There should be something we should put in place to help us generate funds to support women. To support women to be able to run, pick up funds and pull through the campaigns. Shockingly, when it comes to supporting, when a woman shows interest, sometimes the help or the support she gets financially comes from some of the male counterparts or people who believe that a woman can make an impact. So while we're putting things.
All right, it's still 60 Minutes Nigeria right here on Independent Television. We're talking about women in politics. What is the way forward? What is the future of women in the political space? Before I went on that break, my guest, Oluchi Wosu, was actually talking about the challenges some women actually face when they want to secure party nomination forms and, of course, funding for political campaigns. How can these barriers be addressed? How can these issues, these disparities be addressed? Oluchi, if you're still there, I'd love you to keep going on that question.
Thank you very much. Even though right now I can't see, but I don't know if you can see me. I can't
We
see
can
anything on the
absolutely
screen.
see you.
Oh, I can't see anything on the screen. However, I'll just continue. I was saying that the issue of lack of fund, of course, it can be traced to the fact that women, the men have been in the space, before we came. Take, for example, in the North, they didn't start voting till a certain year, many years after we had even gotten independence.
Yeah.
So that lack of empowerment is what makes us struggle with running for offices. However, I stated before we went off that I've noted that when a woman declares that she has an interest, usually where the support comes from financially now is usually from her male counterparts or men in the space who believe she has what it takes to make an impact. Now, while we're putting together means, schemes, and maybe initiatives to generate funds for ourselves, I would want for, I would love for we to also learn learn that we need to align with men who believe in what we believe in. I can break it down as a young person. There are agitations that I have, and I know that everybody may not buy into it, but I identify all the people in the political space who I know are gender friendly,
Okay.
youth friendly. While the former Senate president, permit me to say this, while Dr. Bukola Saraki, while he was there, he demonstrated amazing leadership skills and established relationships with young people. For the first time in this country, we had the opportunity of having a Senate president who bring young people together in his house and have conversations. Simple, what's going on today? What happened in your state? What happened? And that is where he tries to get, feedback. And we too were able to push our demands and agitations that way. So I think that it's something that we could work hand in hand. Oh, okay, you need my support. This is also what we, the youths, are agitating for. This is what the women are agitating for. And then somehow we're able to work. And I think there's a name for it. Either you lobby for it or you team up to achieve a common goal. But basically, the most important thing is women need to think of a way of generating funds for themselves ahead of these elections. Because even the idea or concept of saying that you are giving free forms, sometimes they may give you those forms, but it doesn't mean that after you pick up the form, you get, the financial backing to keep going or run. Yes. So and that thing sometimes limits women because you just feel like, oh, you're answerable to certain people. But if you know that you have what it takes to pick up your form, and then you have the fund to help you run through campaigns, you'll be more serious because that is your money. You
It
don't
puts
want to
you
play
on
with
your
it.
toes, right?
So we need to think of the exactly. And
Absolutely.
the idea of true empowerment. I like to use the word true empowerment. We're tired of seeing the what has been happening in the years.
Paying lip
They give
service.
rappers, they give food, 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 I, food items, and then it just ends with lip service. It's never implemented. I mean, there's no reason why, as I speak to you today, there's no reason why all political parties will not identify young women and put up certain capacity building trainings for them that would help empower them, help them generate, funds even for themselves to be able to say, okay, they would contest for certain positions. We have amazingly beautiful people, young people who can perform. But as I speak to you today, if you tell them to even print posters, they do not
Because they do
have the
not have
money.
the funds. Okay, so the major thrust of what
Empowered.
you're
Yes.
saying is the fact that there needs to be true empowerment, like you rightly said. We need to see more men and more women supporting those who are actually interested in taking up the forms and, of
Mhm.
course, going into politics full time. I think in the coming days, we do hope to see that actually happening. At least we have women like you who have started advocacy groups to do such things. So if we have women like you, more women like you, I definitely do see Nigeria and Africa in general coming up in that regard. Thank you so much, Oluchi Wonsu, for being on the show today. We have to call it a wrap right about now. It has
Thank
been
you
an
very
interesting conversation right here on the program 60 Minutes Nigeria. My name is Ameze Bazwaye. Good afternoon.